Hello, hello everyone, and welcome to the Astro Consciousness channel. I'm Millie, and I am here to talk to you about the Mercury retrograde in Leo taking place between July 18th and August 11th. In this channel, we talk about the astrological energy of the week ahead and how you can integrate it into your personal and spiritual growth. I really want to jump into what this Mercury retrograde in Leo means and what the themes that we're really going to be working through. So, Mercury in Leo is always going to ask us, what is my soul's boldest expression? How do I feel at this moment in time about the fire that is within me, what I want to create in the world, what I want to express to the world, whether it's the world at large, if you have some kind of platform, or maybe it's you just saying, I'm tired of hiding this part of myself. I'm tired of not being able to say the things that I really mean, to speak from the heart, because it doesn't feel safe to do so, because I don't feel received, right? I don't feel loved when I express myself, when the voice of my soul is in the boldest expression, okay? So what this Mercury retrograde in Leo is going to do is that it's going to turn the spotlight inward. And it's going to turn it away from performative pride and us trying to convince others to see us when they can't or they won't, or maybe it's not in their path to see us, and the connection between, you and someone else for them to see you in that way. And it's going to take it from that outward expectation of being seen towards a deeper reclamation of your own authentic voice and your own presence, right? Um, I follow a spiritual teacher. His name is Kyle Cease, and I cannot remember where I heard this or where he said it, but I remember him saying one of our greatest mistakes is trying to be seen by those that don't even see themselves. One of our greatest mistakes is trying to be seen when we don't even see ourselves, right? And so when we think of Leo in the zodiac, Leo is the sign of the heart. Leo is ruled by the sun. The sun is trying to illuminate, the light of the sun is trying to illuminate our expression. I've said it before, Mercury doesn't only represent communication, it represents perception. And so when you go back to some of the videos of the last couple of weeks, and I've talked about Uranus and Gemini is the transformation that comes of self-perception and how you perceive yourself and your place in the world. Mercury rules the sign of Gemini, right? But right now, Mercury is in Leo, and Mercury is saying, how can I change the perception that I have of myself and my place in the world and what is possible for me and what I'm capable of when I tap into my heart, when I tap into love, when I tap into the light that exists within me, because that's what Leo represents, right? So here we are going back, essentially, Mercury retrograde to be with and understand and learn how to have a different relationship with self-love. And how do we communicate that to ourselves? How do we communicate that to others when we speak? How do we communicate that in our work? It's important to remember that the entire zodiac and how it moves, the trajectory of each sign that follows another sign is all of it a return to love, right? So while Leo governs things like creativity, confidence, and heart-centered leadership, a retrograde here strips away the egoic performance and returns to the root of our heart's radiance. And that is so, so important at this moment in time because remember, we are in the middle of a new era. We were just waiting for Uranus and Gemini to get there. And so it's no accident that as we enter this new era, Mercury, the way that we process the world, because Mercury is a personal planet, Personal planets represent the attributes that we use on a daily basis, right? So Mercury, how we communicate, how we think, how we take in the world. Venus, another personal planet, how we relate. Mars, how we take action. It's no wonder that we enter this new era and Mercury starts to retrograde so that we can kind of rediscover our place in the world and say, whoa, wait a minute. Uranus and Gemini is moving things really quickly. Okay, I need to take a moment. I need to take a moment because who is the me that is entering this new era? And the cosmos and the universe is so wise and so giving and so loving that it wants us to enter this new era from the understanding of our soul's radiance and no longer wait for that radiance to be reflected back to us by others that may not see themselves in that light just yet. I really invite you to think about how the last couple of months probably showed you how you have been trying to be seen by certain people that just don't see you. And you have to get to a point where you realize, well, that doesn't make them bad. That doesn't make them the bad guy. Maybe they're not meant to see me, and that's okay. How do I come back to seeing myself and redirecting my life in a direction where I can align with that, right? So some of the spiritual themes around this Mercury retrograde in Leo are really about reclaiming the voice of the inner child. Because, right? Where does a lot of our wounding around not being seen or perhaps feeling rejected come from? From childhood, right? And reclaiming the voice of that inner child, the unfiltered, the wildly expressive part of you who spoke from joy and who spoke from truth before being censored in shame. I think that there's a lot of healing that can come from this Mercury retrograde because every single Mercury retrograde is such a gift because we have the opportunity to just take a moment and say, what have I been thinking? What are my thoughts? What are my words? What is my inner dialogue? Or what are my inner dialogues, all right, that are sometimes going on at the same time? Where do they come from? And Leo in the zodiac represents childlike joy. So this is the revisiting and the reclaiming again of that inner child's voice. I think another thing that this gives us the opportunity to do is to rework our creative narrative, right? So, and this isn't just creative in creative projects, it's creative in how you are creating the life that you're living and becoming mindful of old stories around not being good enough, not being seen, or being too much, right? Come up so that we rewrite them, so that we decide in this new era, who am I choosing to go in as? Who am I choosing to go in as? Because remember, Saturn in Aries represents self-responsibility. Saturn in Aries is saying, I get what you've been through. I know it's been hard. I know you've experienced trauma. It's all valid. And you get to choose whether you choose to walk through life with those stories, with those narratives, defining you, defining the unfolding of your life. And so this isn't just about recalibrating, a lot of words with the prefix right, with that retrograde. This isn't just about recalibrating your mind. This is about recalibrating your energetic field so that you can align with the things, with the people, with the circumstances that your heart has been waiting a long, long time to reconnect with, to align with. Okay. Another thing that this Mercury retrograde gives us the opportunity to do is redefine what it means to be seen, right? I talked about this a little bit already, but Leo craves recognition. Leo is the sun, and the sun warms, the sun illuminates. The sun, without really saying it, says, look at me. We enjoy the warmth of the sun when it's out, right? We enjoy the light that the sun gives us. But this retrograde reminds us that true recognition begins with self-recognition. Are you able to witness your own light? And if there is one question, if there is one thing you reconsider, you revisit, you reclaim throughout this entire retrograde between June 30th and August 25th, I leave you with just that. Are you able to witness your own light? Are you able to see yourself through the lens of the unconditional love that the universe has for you? And if right now, as you're watching this, the answer may be like, I don't know, no, then I invite you to really take that with you and set the intention. How can I witness my light more often? How can I make room for my light on a daily basis? How can I begin to see it first? Right? I think that's so important because there is nothing that is more self-loving than recognizing ourselves, recognizing how whole we are, and recognizing how the wholeness of who and what we are is so important to the collective blanket that we are a part of. We are a piece of the puzzle. We are a thread of the blanket. And a significant way of being of service to the collective is in recognizing our own light. Does it have to mean anything externally? No. But when you recognize your own light, you show up differently in the world. You show up differently for yourself, right? So, another thing that's important to remember with this Mercury retrograde in Leo is remembering to restage your life with more soul and less performance. So, this is the ability that we have to, again, look at our life and saying, where am I showing up because I feel I have to? Where am I showing up because there's a sense of obligation? Where am I showing up because I'm performing for others so that they're not upset, so that they like me, so that they love me, right? And where am I showing up from a place of soul? You're being asked to redefine or actually refine your presence and not dim it by being more discerning of where you put your presence, of where you put yourself, right? Some of the energetic themes around this are reworking old communication patterns, especially around self-expression, performance, pride, revisiting, right? Revisiting past creative projects, soul projects that were shelved out of fear, out of doubt, right? Especially around the months of January or April, if that resonates with you, because at the time, Mars, the planet of action, was opposing Pluto. So maybe either in January or in April, you got excited about something and you said, yeah, I want to do this. And then you're like, oh man, but it's too big. It's too much. I can't. And this Mercury retrograde in Leo is saying, but is it coming from the soul? And is it your soul's mission? Because if it is, it wants to be expressed. And so this Mercury retrograde in Leo is about coming back slowly, right? Revisiting things, organizing certain things so that you are able to put something out in the world, I would say by September, which will be around eclipse season. Okay. Um, this is also a really great time for rediscovering your own Leo boldness, your warmth, your courage, your generosity, your joy, right? So this retrograde isn't a fire sign, but it isn't quiet. And not because it's going to be outwardly loud. I would say that perhaps in global events, certain leaders, right? Certain things around the world, they're going to be try to be louder than usual. I think a lot of it will have to do because people are starting to wake up a little bit. But in the immediate manifestation of this, in the immediate manifestation of us as individuals, this is a coming back to our heart. This is a coming back to our soul's fire. This is this is a sacred recalling and return to self. Because when we pay attention to what Leo represents in our life, in our heart, Leo, remember, rules the sun. We each have a sun sign. How am I expressing this ego, this identity out into the world? How is it sharing? How is it communicating? How is it connecting with others? And so I wanted to give you a couple of dates that I think are important. You might want to write them down. Just pay attention, right? Um, One of them already passed, but that's okay. You can look back at your calendar, your text messages, your emails, your journals, and think about what was going on at the time. The first one being June 30th, in which Mercury in Leo was creating an opposition to Pluto in Aquarius, and the pre-retrograde shadow phase began. This is right before the actual retrograde. We're starting with the Mercury retrograde energy. What's happening? Why am I thinking about this? Why is this coming up? Right? And the opposition to Pluto may have felt like a bit of a confrontation, right? So a confrontation of a shadow, whether it's the confrontation of a shadow of self or the confrontation of a shadow of another. And I would say that that probably went on that very from June 30th through that first week of July. So think about what conversations were had that you were confronted with a shadow again, perhaps your own, perhaps of another, and you want to ask yourself, did I honor my voice? Did I speak what I knew I needed to speak at that moment in time, right? And so what that tells you is that there is something about that June 30th and that first week of July that, oh, okay, because it happened right before the retrograde, this is something we're going to be working through the rest of July and into August. But it's going to be different because you have a different level of awareness of what came up. You're holding it differently. You don't feel so overpowered or so overshadowed. You're saying, I've seen this before. I've had this discussion before. I've had this thought before. How do I move with it differently? Because I get the feeling that there's something else going on here. Another date that I think is really important is July 18th. And so July 18th is a time where Mercury starts its retrograde, but it starts its retrograde sextiling Venus and Gemini. This is really interesting because Venus is in Gemini. Gemini rules Mercury, and Mercury is going retrograde in Leo. Leo is also known as the actual sign of love, as the actual sign of the heart, right? So here we have Venus in Gemini, Venus, the planet of relationships. We are rethinking. We are rethinking what love looks like. Okay. So this can look like a few different ways. If you are in a partnership and you've been having a lot of back and forth, um, this Mercury retrograde is actually really great to kind of weed through some things and get to the other side of something that you've been struggling with each other for quite some time, right? Again, you have to mind your arrogance. You have to mind that you're not trying to one up one another. You have to remember to come from heart, to come from soul. I love you. This is where we bump heads. How do we move through this step by step? Who do we need to talk to, right? Who can help us with this? Another thing that I think I, I just have a feeling, right? This is an intuitive feeling. Because Uranus just went into Gemini, because Venus had a conjunction to Uranus, right, in Gemini. I think that this Mercury retrograde in Leo, in the sign of the heart, in the sign of love, is our first introduction to the redefining of what love and relationships are. And I think that it's going to come with a little bit of disappointment only because it's going to really land that, oh, relationships are really not these fairy tales. And I think that is incredibly liberating because if Mercury in Leo is the understanding of holding someone in their light because of their heart, because of their soul, then we stop making relationships about what someone can give us and start making relationships more about each individual seeing themselves before they ask another to see them first. I haven't read this anywhere, I haven't seen this anywhere, but when I look at the trajectory of the astrology, intuitively, what comes up, of course, in session with talking to people, I think this is our first introduction to, oh, relationships are not what I thought they were. Not because we're going to hate relationships, not because we're going to want them less. I actually think they make this realization makes for a better foundation of a much more authentic commitment to someone else because we are appreciating who they are as an individual versus what we want them to be. And a Mercury retrograde in Leo, remember, is saying you need to see your own light first because when you see your own light, not only are you able to see the light of others, but you stop expecting others to see your light. And so much around relationships is I don't feel seen by you. Okay. So I'm not saying that that's not hurtful at times, but what I am saying is you have to see yourself first because when you can see yourself first, then you are able to say, okay, that person, if they don't see you, that person doesn't see me. So what does that mean for me? What decision do I need to make? Right? The third date that I think is really important of this retrograde period is July 31st. That is the midway point of this retrograde. It happens every retrograde. It's when the sun meets Mercury retrograde, right? It's known also as a cazimi. And all that means is that the sun's light, which is ruled by Leo, right? The sun will be in Leo, illuminates Mercury that has been retrograde in Leo. That illumination may come with it usually, the Kazemi comes with clarity, it comes with news, it comes with the phone call, it comes with the answer, it comes with the response that we were expecting. So usually those times are really great. The sun is illuminating something, it's putting the light on something, right? So this is going to be really lovely, I think, especially in the sign of Leo, because everything that we have been thinking about working through since June 30th, now we can begin to see the other side of it. So this can very well be this sense of rebirth in my voice, in my identity, in my creative expression, or just in the way that I create my life and my sense of mission. This is when Mercury retrogrades are truly fascinating because people just see them as these things that are so that they're so annoying and they're such an inconvenience. And it's like, no, think about it. It's Mercury retrograde is asking you to think about your life, to spend some time inward, and that's a gift. Okay. Um, this is you really landing and that whole week, right, of July 31st, really landing in that moment of remembering who you are and why you're here. Ah, this is my heart. This is my soul. This is how it wants to be in the world, in this life. Leo is the sign of authenticity. And authenticity comes when we live a heart-led, soul-led life. Not because we're throwing caution to the wind, but because we're taking time to go within. And so a Mercury retrograde in the sign of Leo is the mind slowing down enough to listen to the heart's wisdom and guidance, right? So this journey is so much less about communication glitches, which we'll probably experience. It is what it is, right? And really is so much more about the transformational, alchemical refinement of your voice, of your presence, of your power, whether it's again, what because you have a platform or in your life, being the authority, the power in your life, right? So you're not just reviewing and revisiting information and ideas and conversations. You probably will do that. But what is actually happening here? Because remember, we have to take into context what 2025 is that you're retrieving parts of your soul that were left behind or perhaps even fractured in the past because you were told that you were too loud, too bold, too big. Think of the gift that that is, right? And so now you remember that your voice needs to be what it is because there's something greater there for you. Do not simply go into this Mercury retrograde in Leo thinking that it's just another Mercury retrograde, that you're just going to experience, mishaps and delays, which, by the way, especially during a Mercury retrograde, they are always a gift. This Mercury retrograde is taking you back a little bit to, again, January, April. What was I too afraid to do? What was I too afraid to say? What was the decision perhaps that I was too afraid to make that really is going to take us into the end of August and you being able to say, oh, I need to do this as an act of self-love. Okay. So much love to you all. May this be of service. I will talk to you next week. Take care.